Welcome to this week's edition of Picking and Putting. Doc Z here in the corporate studios, along with Liberty Bill in the Iowa Hawkeye support studios right there. Today, I'm starting out with my Bobby Bowden hat because that's my shout out today to Coach Bowden. He had 377 wins or whatever, but they took away wins from him. I forget why, which I've always thought is bogus. It's like Reggie Bush still won the Heisman, but he had like 60 some other wins that they didn't include in his total. And of all the coaches that you've ever heard about, this man was above board. He was about the kids and religion. And, he was just a really nice guy. He was what you saw on TV. And so I'm hard pressed to have him go back and say, oh, we're taking victories away from the 90s. I just don't buy any of that.
No, I don't. It's better to, even if someone screws up like Joe Paterno, he still has the most wins. You can talk about the other stuff too. I think It's important not to hide it. I think it's important. It's like baseball on steroids. Put those guys in the Hall of Fame and then explain, hey kids, don't do steroids, Don't try to hide everything.
Well, I mean, that goes along with the ESPN ran a show about Shoeless Joe and Pete Rose. And the cutest story, quick story, Pete Rose tells a story and he goes, well, he says, well, why would I care about getting in the Hall of Fame after I'm dead? You want to hear a story about that? Yeah. I was talking to this guy last week and he died and he got in the Hall of Fame. And he said, do you think there's heaven? When he comes back and talks to me, he says, yeah, there's heaven up there. There's baseball. It's awesome, Pete. He says, what's the bad news? The bad news is you're playing next week.
Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa.
Yeah, no, it's your play. Yeah, for you folks that are watching on YouTube, that's the Field of Dreams field in Iowa, although that's the actual movie set one. And the real one is built off, I think, over here in the corner. And that was part of the excitement that Bill and I got into talking about because they're supposed to play a game this week there. And, in honor of that, I've got my Cleveland, what are they? I'm wearing my
Guardians,
my Cleveland Guardians shirt. I got a friend I played golf with this weekend who's from Cleveland. He says, forever they are the Indians. I'm sorry.
I think you should get a piece of tape at the front of that jersey and write GU. It is nice how they blended the logos though. So it's still Dians.
Yeah, well, they thought about something. So I got my Cubs hat on.
Oh, a lot of props today.
Oh yeah, baby! I went full baseball here. Field of Dreams.
This is why you got to watch it on YouTube, folks. You got to see all the props and the backgrounds and all that good stuff.
Yeah. It's more fun to do that. Well, you got any shout outs?
Yeah, actually, first of all, regarding the Field of Dreams game coming up on Thursday night, I didn't even know about this until yesterday. Shout out, and I rarely do this. Major League Baseball is sponsoring an event called A Dream Fulfilled that has a group called Ace from the south side of Chicago and a group called Dream from New York City. Bunch of black teenagers are coming in and playing a game on national television at the field where the White Sox and Yankees will be playing 5 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night on Fox Sports 1. Be a great chance to preview the field they've got going there. And obviously a great opportunity for those young men to go out and play in a majestic setting. So shout out to MLB for having this event, obviously raising some hype, but also giving back in the process.
Yeah, I hope they're pulling it off. But yeah, because that's just an awesome idea. I mean, it's very cool. I came up with a song, which they're baseball songs out the wazoo, but the fun one here was, and I forgot this, it's Glory Days by Bruce Springsteen. And you guys can probably hear the song in your head or whatever, but he wrote it in 82 and it came out in 85, and he had seven hit songs off his album.
Is that right? Off one album?
Yeah, Born in the USA. Doesn't make that makes sense. And it was the fifth single. It got to like I forget, number 60 or something on the Billboard charts. But what it was about was he grew up in New Jersey, New York, and it was about looking back on your glory days of high school. And he played Little League baseball. So it was about playing Little League baseball and his glory days. And the whole first verse is talking about when he met up with a buddy that was on the Little League team in 73 named Joe DePew. If you're out there, listen in, man. Yeah, it peaked at number 5 on the billboards. And it's fun with these kind of songs. You got to go back and listen to the lyrics. You never listen to the lyrics. You just,
He really was a poet. I mean, he had catchy tunes, but to your point, when you go back and actually read the words, that guy was a true poet.
Yeah. And he wrote and both, lyrics and song. He wrote both of them. But it's been the lyrics have been changed for different things that's what it was. It was for Super Bowl, I think 44. They used it as a promo, but they changed all the things to football oriented, instead of baseball, and the verses changed. In fact, he had one verse he wrote about his father, and then he pulled it because his father worked in a Ford plant for 20 some years and then never had any glory days past high school. And so he wrote a verse about his dad, and then he yanked it because he thought it didn't sound right.
That's a good tidbit right there. The missing verse.
He didn't want to, the missing verse. He didn't want to pick on his dad. So anyways, that's the song. I didn't have a lot more history about it except,
well, I remember the music video. That was pretty cool. And they had some baseball scenes in that one.
Well, that's the deal. Oh, I forgot about that. I'm sorry. Yeah, the MTV video, back when MTV was big, it was a huge video. Steven Van Zandt was in it. He had a whole bunch of guys in it. And the whole deal about the band and the way they did, they talked about how they recorded it. It was pretty goofy. The way who was Steve Van Zandt with?
He was part of the E Street Band, but he's gone off on his own too.
Yeah,
but that family name is Leonard Skinner originally.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And I'll say about Bruce, I was a casual Bruce Springsteen fan, and all my friends were going to see him at Wrigley Field. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll go, whatever. And this was 5 years ago. So what? He was probably 65, 66. Actually, it was probably 7-8 years ago. But either way, he was above 60. And that guy turned me into a fan. I mean, he played there was an intermission, but he played 2 sets, like 3.5 hours at Wrigley Field, and just absolutely rocked the house. And now I listen to more Bruce Springsteen after seeing him live than I ever did before. His live performances, I highly recommend.
Oh, if you go back, and those guys, they're just stalwarts. You go back, I've told you that story about me hearing McCartney. And he played like 16 instruments, never left the stage for 3 hours. And you left and you said, that was fun. I mean, it was better than WWE, man. I mean, it was, or AW, whatever the hot one is now. So
I've been to Field of Dreams. However, when I was there, and I don't know if you've heard about this, there was a huge dispute. And the land was technically owned by 2 different families. So when you went there, literally left field was owned by a different family, a different farm. So you could go and you can go on the field and you can hit balls and it's kind of fun. There's families and they have gloves you can borrow. But when you went to borrow the gloves, they said, do not use them in left field. That is not our property. You can only use them in center field, right field, and the infield. So there was this whole squabble. And I believe that finally the patriarchs of the family passed away, and I think they really had the rivalry. And then the two families, I think, settled, and one of them sold. So now it's all good. It's one family. You can go there. You don't have this conflict. And now for the Field of Dreams Stadium, as you said, they set it up right next to it. 8,000 temporary stands. Apparently, when you drive in, it'll be just like James Earl Jones in the movie, just all cornfields. And then out of nowhere, surrounded by corn, you'll see this new stadium that popped up. And I really hope they get more and more use out of this. I said they're having the kids play. They should have college teams play. Hell, the Tampa Bay Rays, they're looking for somewhere to play. Why don't they play half their games at this stadium? I really hope they use this to its full potential. I think it's going to be really cool on TV.
Well, that may be the origins of the shift. So when you went there, everybody had to shift to right field. And so if you could hit it in left field, it was an automatic ground rule double or something. I don't know.
It was obnoxious. It was these huge signs. Please take a glove, but do not bring it to left field. That's enemy territory.
Taking that movie to another, and we're going to go into our 3 favorite baseball movies, but they're more than that. But that movie really brought to the fore Shoeless Joe and made him out as a good character. And, so they had this whole show on this, and he got $5,000 for that. But he still played to win was what he was quoted as saying. And the hard part now, like they say, they went back and interviewed Faye Vincent and everything. You cannot not do what you said and add that to Cooperstown when you're going to allow gambling in the stadiums now. So if everything else in the world has changed and we got to change names of teams and change this, then let's buck up and say, okay, you got to allow these guys in the Hall of Fame, and you can put an asterisk on their plaque. So what? Yep. I mean, they went through, let's face it, they're gamblers, embezzlers, probably murderers, everything else in every Hall of Fame. But that's not what you're Hall of Faming. You're Hall of Faming between the base pads, between the end lines. And so, I mean, I grew up with Pete Rose, so I don't care what he did. He's in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
and all evidence on Pete Rose points to him betting on his team. Right now, there's a huge controversy in hockey. This Evander Kane character may have bet against his team. So, and the other thing about Shoeless Joe, his stats in that World Series
were good.
394 on base percentage, 563 slugging percentage. So you add those two together, on base plus slugging, you're talking 959. I'm looking it up. That would be number 5 in baseball right now. That would be the 5th best hitter in baseball right now. The guy, if he was trying to throw the World Series, he did a really terrible job of doing it.
Yeah, and it was interesting. They played the Cincinnati Reds, and back then it was 5-3 was the end. And how they came up with 8 games, I don't know. But they played 8 games in that World Series that they won. Yeah, I just think it'll be an interesting time. It's like they interviewed Faye Vincent, and Faye Vincent said, well, should he be in? No. Should he be in? No. He said one of the reasons for Rose is that he still lives in Las Vegas and bets on baseball to this day. And then in the end, the last question, he says, will he ever get in the Hall of Fame? And he said, oh, yeah, he'll get in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's
not the Hall of Morality. It's not the Hall of Character. It's the Baseball Hall of Fame. And to your point, there's a lot of former drug addicts, abusers, criminals already in there.
Yeah. So take it to the heck. Well, how about your movies? I started going through them, and I came up with more than but what I think of when you think of all these things in the movies that you really love, it's what movie, like any song, what movie do you, when you see it, you have to stop and watch it for, even if it's for 15 minutes, you just say, oh my gosh, there it is. I got to watch it. It may be on one of those weird networks, ISP or whatever, and the one for me, the first one that I have to stop and watch, depending on where they are in the film, is Redford, the Natural. Because when he hits the when he hits the lights and the electricity goes out and the fireworks show, it just, and then the last scene is they're in Iowa throwing, or Nebraska. He's throwing the
Very
base.
similar to Iowa, but yes.
Yeah. Well, it's Nebraska, right? Isn't that what
Yep.
And he's throwing the baseball, and I could watch that movie over and over. So that would be my number one. What about you?
There's so I made a top 5, but before I even get into that, honorary top 5, Bull Durham didn't make my top 5, but that's
Bull Durham. Yeah.
And then part of it too is the age at which I saw these movies. So I'd say number 5, Major League, Bob Uecker.
Hey, wait, man. Hey, just a bit outside there.
Just a classic.
And then, yeah, of course, because they open the left field wall and a leather jacket walks out and Wild Thing. And then Randy Quaid's in the bleachers. Hey, Wild Thing, you suck.
They'll never win anything. And the owner and just all, and for me, seeing the old school 80s ballparks, I always love watching that. And then number 4 is Sandlot. I was a kid when that came out. I saw it in the theater. I was playing Little League Baseball at the time. I wanted to get into sports media. Benny the Jet goes on to be or not Benny the Jet, the main kid goes on to be a broadcaster, and Benny the Jet steals home. Sandlot, fantastic film. Can't wait to show my little guy that movie in a few years.
Yeah, you said that when I was thinking of Elton John. Was he playing? Benny and the Jet. Okay.
Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
Yeah, there you go.
And then this one you're probably not familiar with, but I was living in Minnesota when it came out. Little Big League. This is where the grandfather owns the Minnesota Twins and he passes away suddenly. And he grants ownership to his grandson, who's like 13. The grandson fires the manager, becomes the manager of the team. And for Ken Griffey Jr. is in that movie. Randy Johnson's in that movie. And I spent a lot of time going to the Metrodome when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. So getting to see that featured prominently throughout the movie, getting to see a kid be the manager, loved that movie, which segues into number 2, Rookie of the Year. That's where Henry Rowan Gardner, you're the medical person here. You're the doctor.
Oh, throws the ball 100 miles an hour.
Somehow his tendons get tightened up and he can throw it 100 miles an hour. Yeah. So the Cubs have this 12-year-old kid as their pitcher. And again, for me, into the nostalgia, that's Wrigley Field before it got corporatized. It's the old school, pure Wrigley Field. Chet Steadman is played by Gary Busey in that movie, is kind of the old veteran. And then the pitching.
I can picture the mother.
Yes, the mother is fantastic in that movie. And then the pitching coach, Daniel Stern, who was, of course, Marv in Home Alone, is the kooky pitching coach who's always trying to play with different substances and all that. He's an absolute character. And then number 1 is Moneyball. That's my favorite book that I've ever read. And normally the movie doesn't do the book justice. I thought Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill did a fantastic job in that movie. And that's one where you talk about if it's on Showtime or HBO, I will sit there and watch it no matter how many times I've seen it.
You know, that's funny because I had the Natural and you didn't. And I had Major League because, every time I hear that, it's a bit outside. I mean, Bob Uecker, I just love Bob Uecker. But then, and he's still calling games, right?
Yes, he does it by himself. He's a one-man booth for Milwaukee. If I randomly will just catch I got that speaker in the shower, real fancy stuff, and I'll listen to a little Brewers game while I'm showering. He's still doing it.
Yeah, and he's just so funny. He's kind of like Harry Carey was. He became
exactly.
He's a character. Well, I had the other one I had in there. I had 2 other ones, and I had to have There's No Crying in Baseball.
Yeah, see, there's so many.
What? There's no crying in baseball?
That's such a good movie. Good movie.
And my favorite scene is they come out there and they're coming out and she walks out and they got the girls out there with Madonna and that, and they're chewing gum and they throw the ball at her and she sticks up her hand and goes, and they go, oh. She's good.
And Rosie O'Donnell's in that movie.
Well, I think it's Rosie. Rosie's talking to Madonna, and that's who throws the ball at I forget her name.
I think Dottie was the character name.
Yeah, Dottie. Dottie's the character's name.
Yep. That's
and then the other one is I Had Field of Dreams, which of course we're talking
another great
about.
one.
But because I mean, the scenes where they walk out of the corn, but the soliloquies or the whatever, kind of like of James Earl Jones sitting there on the bench. What does he say? Can you hear them? Can you hear? They're coming.
If you build it, they will come. Go the distance.
Yeah, go the distance. And he keeps talking that, and he's just awesome in that. So yeah, I get a kick out of that. Well, I hope that game comes off. I mean, like you said, I don't know, baseball in the Hall of Fame, their Hall of Fame. It was interesting last night. They had the football Hall of Fame ceremonies, and Peyton was pretty good.
Yeah, he seems like he's genuinely concerned about the future of football and wants to be a part of making it part of the future, and seemed very open to change. They need to put him in some kind of consultative executive role and really have him in charge of making rules.
Yeah, well, because you saw on his own kids, they're playing flag football. And so but that's the way you can teach them the game and everything about it without all the concussive injuries to a 12-year-old. And that's what they realize. They're going back and realizing that, if a kid's playing soccer from the time he's 6 and doing headers do have consequences. When the kids are heading in soccer,
of course.
Well, the same goes for football, and it's too much about trying to make kids grow up. But anyways, yeah, I thought that was very cool. He gave a very eloquent speech, and I liked it. He said, well, in 2035, when Brady gets in, he'll just post his speech on Instagram, because that's all the time they'll give.
Yeah, he was having some fun. And Edgerrin James, really loved watching him. Isaac Bruce as well. These are a lot of Charles Woodson. These are guys that I remember when they played in college. And now, Steve Smith, I believe, is eligible next year. But the thing he'll run into is at his position, wide receiver, there's such a backlog. You've got Reggie Wayne. I think you've got Andre Johnson. So I don't think he'll get in for the first ballot, but Steve Smith will be in there soon enough.
Well, we'll see. I saw a poll this morning on the sports where they were saying that the sports writers, one of the guys said he thinks he will, but
first ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they didn't pay attention to positional stuff, he's clearly a Hall of Famer. He'll get in.
Yeah. So I don't know. I did like, what I liked the most was Peyton's little thing where he and his son went in there and they had the game with the statues. And he said, I handed it off to Edgerrin James and he fumbled and it was picked up and thrown by Sammy Baugh. And, and by the time they scored, it was Steve Atwater chasing down, whatever. And he went through all these famous names and you went, oh, that is so cool. Think about it. You walk down there and you just go, these are all the people you've ever heard about. I can remember my father, and it was always the greatest athlete was your time. It's kind of like Michael Jordan now, and now times move on. But I remember my dad said, oh, you had to see Sammy Baugh. He said, this guy could sling in Sammy Baugh. He said he could throw the ball. He probably the equivalent of, Brett Favre or Green Bay quarterback now, but
Rodgers.
Well,
how do you think the Peyton and Eli Manning Monday Night Football booth? I guess that'll be on ESPN2 for like 10 games this year.
Really?
Do you think that'll get higher ratings than the normal broadcast?
Oh, I think so. You know why? Because, his brother is so kind of tongue in cheek, but he's really funny.
Yeah, I think the balance between the two of them. Here's my concern, though, is
you could bring in Cooper for a little bit. He'd be fine.
Yeah, Cooper supposedly is hilarious too. My concern with it, though, they mentioned bringing celebrities on. I want Peyton and Eli to just talk football. I'm concerned this might be an attempt to try to get the more casual fan, and it might turn into more of a talk show. Whereas I would want Peyton Manning to put on his Tony Romo hat. Right. Okay, Jim, he's going to throw it over here. Here we go. Here we go, Jim. I mean, that Jim Nantz, Tony Romo just makes the broadcast so much more fun.
Yeah, but then Eli would turn to him and go, well, wouldn't that be in Omaha there?
Omaha.
They poked a little fun at Omaha last. You remember when he first started doing that and they were honing in on it, and Omaha was getting a bunch of, vibes for it. When I think that was when he was still in Indy before he went to Denver.
Yeah.
You go, Omaha, it was pretty cool.
Well, I do have a Field of Dreams quote. Do you got a quote?
Yeah, I got a quote. You go ahead.
Mine is James Earl Jones. It's the classic quote. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It has been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again, but baseball has marked the time. This field, this game, it's a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us all that once was good and it could be again. Oh, people will come, Ray. People will most definitely come. And they're coming this week to Dyersville, Iowa.
And you can hear his voice, in your head. I mean, his voice is just wonderful.
Darth Vader himself.
Yeah, Darth Vader. Well, I got my quote is in deference to Coach Bowden. And I just love this one. He doesn't know the meaning of the word fear, but then again, he doesn't know the meaning of most words.
That's great. His legacy lives on. I'd like to see Jimbo get one down there at Texas A&M.
Oh, Jimbo, it was sad because Jimbo fit the culture of Florida State and Tallahassee, having been there with my own son. He was a good old boy, y'all. Now he fits West Texas and A&M, but
that SEC is tough as he's learning.
Yeah, well, now that we're, like we said, it's going to go to 50 west of Mississippi, east of Mississippi. So who the hell knows? But, we'll see. Well, everybody, that's this week's episode.
Enjoy the game. Enjoy the corn.
There's Field of Dreams behind me.
It's a big game. White Sox, Yankees. Yankees are trying to get in the playoffs. White Sox, one of the best teams in baseball. And the White Sox are wearing their 1919 uniforms from that World Series.
I was struggling. I had a White Sox hat I was going to wear, but I couldn't find it. So it's in my drawer somewhere. I probably, who knows? I got to
find it by October because they're probably going to win this whole thing.
Well, I can always wear my Charlotte Knights AAA and claim.
Hey, all those guys came up through there. Moncada, Jimenez, Robert, Dylan Cease, Kopech is the reliever.
Well, I saw how Rodin, he blanked him for a sweep in Wrigley, didn't he?
He should. Cy Young candidate, Carlos Rodon.
Was he a NC State grad? Right?
He was an NC State top pick, and he really hadn't met expectations at all these injuries. The White Sox released him last year, brought him back on a cheap 1-year deal, and now that man is about to get paid. Yeah. Good for him. It's a great story.
I like it when those kind of kids get paid for betting on themselves. It's kind of like the supreme bet on myself guy who learned how to play the system was Kawhi Leonard.
The board man gets paid.
The board man gets paid. Well, everybody, we'll see you again next week. Remember, Picking and Putting, we're on all the platforms, YouTube, you name it. Like us, sign up, promote us, whatever you do. And we'll look forward to seeing you on our next show. Billy, it was an honor and fun, man. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.